screen gets a lot louder or wider. Hey, I'm Maddie.
We're live.
How you want it?
Mm-hmm. It's already going on Twitch.
Cool. You want to check the audio?
Yeah, I can check audio. We're new.
Hey. 1, 2. We're checking the audio. Hey. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Hey, this Father Son Sports Pod is live. How's the sound, buddy? Hey. Is it coming through the mic?
It's not coming through the mic.
Not coming through this mic?
Oh no, it is coming through the mic. Okay. I just wasn't close enough to where it sounded good. Anyways.
All right. So, Jer, this thing was your idea. So, how about you give an introduction of who we are and the purpose of this podcast?
So, I'm Jeremiah. This whole thing was my idea a couple weeks ago. I was just bored. And so I was just bored and wanted to create a podcast with Dad. This is all about just us two talking about our favorite sports. As I've put on Instagram a couple of times, it'll be football, basketball, baseball on here, and NASCAR. So NASCAR stuff will mostly come on Mondays, and the goal is to have maybe 3 episodes excuse the dog if you heard her. But the goal is to have a few episodes out each week. I'm just us two talking about sports in here.
Nice. I am Dad. This is my son Jeremiah. So we're just a father and son talking sports. So, Jer, the first thing you have up that you wanted to talk about is the NFL. And then we will talk about college football. So the first thing that we have to talk about are the power rankings. Power rankings are fun and enjoyable, but probably don't mean very much because you have a lot of trades and acquisitions, and you never know about injuries and different things like that. So,
And these are the latest power rankings, post Micah trade, post all the signings and all that.
right. So, I will be more host because when it comes to the NFL, I don't know very much. So I will read, Jeremiah, these top 10 rankings. This is according to NFL.com. And this is, like Jeremiah said, this is taking the Micah Parsons trade from Dallas to Green Bay into account. So, Jer, we'll go through these top 10 and kind of get your thoughts and see who we might think be a little low or a little high or who is where they need to be. So first is the defending champion, Philadelphia Eagles. And then second are those Baltimore Ravens. Third, the Buffalo Bills and Bills Mafia. Fourth, having already lost one spot in the ranks, are the Kansas City Chiefs.
Chiefs are not top 3 in the league.
And then 5, holding steady from whatever previous rankings existed, are the Detroit Lions. 6th place, up 2 spots. No surprise there, perhaps. But 6th spot, the Green Bay Packers. Ranked 7th are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ranked 8th, having lost 2 spots, are the Washington Commanders. 9th, interesting here, up 2 spots, are the Denver Broncos. And then 10th, up 2 spots, are the Cincinnati Bengals. So and I think last, just for fun, last never gets any love.
Should be the Saints. Yeah.
Last
Saints.
Last are the Saints. So last are the Saints. So Jeremiah, based off those top 10 rankings, what do you think? Who's where they need to be? Who's too high? Who's too low?
I like this top 10 by, who's the writer here? Eric Edholm. Um, of course, Philadelphia being top one. You're coming off the Super Bowl, didn't really lose too many guys, but then of course Baltimore at second, which makes sense. Buffalo third, coming off last year. My biggest if though is Kansas City at fourth. You know, Rasheed has been suspended the first 6 games, so I just don't know with Patrick Mahomes turning 30. Travis Kelsey's like 34 years old or something like that, and then Patrick Mahomes is now turning 35. Detroit, I understand that one. Injuries is probably the biggest if for that team. 2 new coordinators. I think David Montgomery is going to be coming back from an injury, so you just hope what they can do with injury wise. Green Bay at 6, of course, with the Micah trade. Don't know how they pulled that off, but good pull by Green Bay with 10 days left of the season. But I don't know if they'll stay 6 because I've been seeing a lot of stuff where Micah has been fighting with back problems recently and is a big if this coming Sunday. Tampa Bay at 7 probably makes sense. They were a sneaky team last year. Not a lot of people talked about them late in the playoffs. 8th being Washington. I like that one. Bringing in Debo was a good pick. And then my biggest back on the Packers, Matthew Golden out of the draft too. Forgot about that. But with Washington, my biggest if with them is Jaden Daniels. Because what if he has a sophomore slump, kind of like what we saw to C.J. Stroud? Kind of like what we saw with C.J. Stroud last year. C.J. his rookie year was insane. Took his team to the playoffs. Won offensive rookie of the year, but last year kind of did not back that up. But and it's probably not easy being a quarterback in the NFC East with being rivals with Dallas, Philadelphia, and then 9th being Denver. Denver's going to be a fun team to watch, with arguably one of the best defensive backs in the NFL, if not the best defensive back in the NFL, Patrick Surtain. And then Bo Nix, he did pretty well last year. It was a pretty good 9th overall pick. And I think he got a few Offensive Rookie of the Year votes, I believe. So they'll be a fun team to watch. The Denver Broncos. Cincinnati, this team would probably be top 5 if their defense knew how to play defense. Of course, you got. It says on here that they finally worked out a deal with Trey Hendrickson, which is probably a really big deal. I don't know if they're still having problems with Shamar Stewart, because Shamar has been seen a few times practicing with Texas A&M. But of course, you still got Joe Burrow, still got your offense. Jamar Chase coming off a triple crown. Joe Burrow almost having 5,000 yards. So another team to look out for is actually rank 11. We didn't talk about them, but they went down 2 ranks. Is the Los Angeles Rams. Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua is just a kind of nasty room for your wideouts. And then, Matthew Stafford being a week 1 concern is probably why LA is not in the top 10.
Yeah, before these rankings, the LA Rams were a 9th. Now they're 11th. They've dropped 2 spots. Jerry, I agree. I think, Philadelphia being the Super Bowl champion, I think that, and they did not get any worse. They still have Barkley, still have Hurts, still have that defense. In the NFC East, we're not really any challengers, except
Biggest
for perhaps
threat is maybe Washington.
Washington. Then you have The quarterback there, does he have a slump? Sophomore slump. Jaden Daniels. Only time will tell. But it'd be interesting to see. You have that Super Bowl and you have the hanging of the banner and the rings and all that stuff. It'll be interesting to see. Is there a hangover? When you now are the champion, and every team that plays you, you're their Super Bowl, to have said that you've beaten the defending Super Bowl champions. So we'll see if there's some kind of hangover, or if that crew with the veteran leadership they have, if they can keep the ship going in the same way. Saquon Barkley, laid down a record last year so young guys could eat during that last game especially.
Yeah, we'll see that tonight at 8:20 p.m. Eastern, Dallas, Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Tonight.
Yeah, Dallas, that they have a big question mark, don't they? We talked about this before, not on screen, but what in the world happened with the Micah Parsons trade? I think I'm a person who lives in Michigan and have no inside whatever, but I think something happened there between management or ownership and Micah Parsons and his camp, and that they just felt like it was irreparable. So it was better or easier or
Micah
whatever.
wanted to stay. That's the thing. Like, they tried working out deals with Dallas, and then earlier today I got a notification from the NFL, like some other people probably have. Apparently Philadelphia was pushing for Micah Parsons. So I'd rather have Micah on Green Bay than Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But excuse the dog if you can hear. But I saw last week, especially, a few reports started coming out that Micah did want to stay. At the end of the day, they just couldn't get anything figured out with him and the Dallas ownership.
Yeah, I think that's the point I'm trying to make. Who knows whose camp or whatever, but whatever. I think sometimes in sports you're better just for a clean start. Baltimore, I think Baltimore is so scary, so dangerous.
I don't see anyone being really better than Baltimore right now
So-
with that defense
so,
they
so
have.
complete. Their defense, I think Roquan is on a mission, and I've seen some things on social media reels, Instagram particularly, where he's been receiving mentorship from the great Ray Lewis.
They extended Kyle Hamilton and then signed Jair Alexander too.
Yeah, and just with that team, you have so much longevity. You've got Harbaugh, who's been there forever. You have Lamar Jackson, who is a preemptive MVP
Derrick
favorite.
Henry coming off like his second 2,000-yard season in his career.
Derrick Henry is like a Volkswagen driving downhill, and I mean that with all due respect. When you want to tackle that dude, that's a career decision. Are
And
you going
it also says here the Ravens have 10 offensive starters back, as well as most of their defense,
to? Yeah.
which performed at a high level at the end of last year.
Yeah, and apparently their schedule's front loaded. If they get to week 7, the bye, ish that area, they have a chance to have a strong season. I think they have a chance to have a strong season regardless. It'll be interesting too. Whether you're a professional or not, when you have all that tension and all that pressure on you, can you not look ahead? When you play a weaker team, can you maintain that standard of excellence? And Jeremiah, here's the thing we've not talked about any at all is, if God forbid, please, but if one of your studs goes down early due to injury or something, then that can change literally everything. I think the Bills are a very, very, very close second in the AFC. For Josh Allen MVP, all those things. I'm high on the Bills and Bills Mafia. I just think they do it the right way. You don't hear a lot about them. They bring their lunch pail and they go to work.
Yeah, you
So-
got James Cook to sign that extension earlier this year. You still got Josh Allen. You have a very, very interesting division with Miami and the Jets and the Patriots. But don't overlook them because Patriots are getting stronger every year. You never know with Miami, but Bills, they still have a very good team and still have a very dangerous team that can maybe shock the world and beat Baltimore and go to the Super Bowl if they really work hard. And of course, what if Josh Allen's marriage to Haley Steinfeld engagement or whatever might have boosted his confidence a bit more if his confidence already wasn't high coming off MVP.
Yeah, you've got a to-do list at home now for sure. Kansas City, they've been the model of consistency for the past decade. It seems like as as Peyton was retiring and Brady was retiring, and that those two organizations, be it the Colts into the Broncos for Peyton, and as Brady was retiring from New England, it kind of seems like Kansas City kind of assumed that role. But my question for Kansas City is, when does time catch up with you?
I think
You know,
it's starting to be the beginning of the year for the Kingdom, in my opinion, and of course, doesn't help with your wide receiver one going out and doing drag races on public highways.
yeah, that's not a good decision. But the old saying is, "Father Time is undefeated." Not saying they're a bunch of old, but they're getting older. Again, Patrick Mahomes is about to turn 30. But they've dominated the AFC. In all of his 7 seasons as starter. Here's a fact. They're going for their 10th division title. But again, that division got a lot better.
Denver and LA especially.
Denver and LA are
Raiders have been killing it in the draft with Brock Bowers and Genty.
yeah, and I know Pete Carroll's older, but the dude can coach. You look at what he did
And they got
with
Geno Smith,
USC, and man, when he was coaching in Seattle, those teams were unbelievable.
Legion of Boom.
Yeah, the Legion of Boom. So we'll see what they can do. Detroit is interesting. I think Detroit has all the pieces, but man, what a terrible way to end your year. You're at home. You're the 1 seed. Everybody's talking about you, and no other way to put it. You lay an egg. What, 5 turnovers, 3 picks by
Yeah,
Goff, something like that.
lost
Something,
like 55-25.
yeah, something unbelievable. And can you get past that? The obvious thing is Hutch is back, and he's going to be hungry as ever. You've got the two-headed monster between Montgomery and Gibbs, and or if you want to call them Sonic and Knuckles, you've got the greatest secondary, and what I think is the greatest secondary in all of football.
Biggest what if though for Detroit is those two coordinators. That's the
Yes.
thing.
It's that losing one to the Jets and the other to your own division in Chicago. But for me, it's going for Detroit. We live in Michigan. We know how crazy this state is about their Lions. We're part of that. But for me, it's going to rise and fall with Jared Goff. Can he make good decisions with
Stay
all
consistent.
the weapons around him, or will he try to press and do too much, or can he just relax in Dan Campbell's system and just play? Just play.
Well, they've won games when he's done that. He just sat back and play.
Yeah, just play. You don't have to do too much. They've put weapons around you. Just be who you need to be. You've got great special teams with Bates. He's reliable. He's proven he can do it in the big moments. So just man, in some cases, just get your team down there and give Bates a shot. But that's interesting. Green Bay, it's obvious for me. As Micah Parsons, you said he's already dealing with some back issues. Can he stay? Can he stay healthy? Another thing I just thought of too is you're playing in Green Bay and it's cold up there. So can he acclimate to that? And I have no reason to think that.
Well, he did play at Penn State for college.
That's true. That's a good point. But he's been in Dallas for a few years, and with that humidity, but man, with his trainers and things like that, I think he'll be just fine. For Tampa, for me, I think I have a lot of respect for Tampa. I think Baker Mayfield has finally found a home.
Yeah, that team has a lot of grit being led by Baker.
They have a lot, but I think what helps them is not even on their roster. I think what helps them is they're in the NFC South, and you'll play Carolina twice.
Your biggest threat's probably Falcons.
You're going to play Atlanta twice. You're going to play New Orleans twice. So again, unless they just lay an egg, they're 6-0 against the division. So I think that's their biggest asset is just the division they're
The
in.
only one I see them lose in their division is probably Atlanta.
Yeah.
At Atlanta.
And again, these are professionals. Anybody can beat anybody, but on paper, Tampa Bay is just that much better than everybody else. Washington, man, they surprised everybody last year, but you and I talked about this before off camera. When you give these coaches and these coordinators and these teams a year to look at you, and I'm talking about Jaden Daniels. They're able to put schemes in place. They're able to disguise things. They're able to create havoc. So the question is, did he do his job in the off season? Did he watch film? Did he stay up on things? Is he improving, or is he just going to hope they can lightning will strike twice in the same place, which we know it doesn't. So that's going to be the key for me. I see on NFL.com editions of Tunsil, Debo,
Those were two
rookies
big
like Connerly,
touchdowns.
Amos, Merritt. Again, they're rookies. What you do in college may or may not translate. Hopefully it does. You don't want to wish ill on any young kid, realizing his dream of playing in the NFL. But for me, it's just going to be, are they going to be able to handle the pressure, or was last year just kind of a fluke? But I say all that just to kind of play devil's advocate. I think Washington's going to be very good. I think at worst they're a wild card team, but if that trajectory continues, they're a dangerous team. Maybe not now, but certainly over the course of the next 5 or 6 years. I look for Daniels to start getting some more MVP consideration. I look for him to continue to improve, and I wish that young man nothing but the best. Denver may be too low.
Maybe.
I
don't know.
Again, I don't either. But when you look at what
I saw a thing where they had like a few big signs this year. It's the same thing with Bo Nix and Jane Daniels. You hope Bo Nix doesn't have a sophomore slump. That's the only thing. You're still in the AFC West, another tough division. You can finish anywhere between first to third in that division.
Yeah.
If not last, if Las Vegas does their thing with all the additions they have brought in.
You may win that division if each team plays to its potential, just at 500 or a little bit above, But, you have Bo Nix, and you look at what, what's his last name? Sean. What's the coach in Denver? Sean Payton. Look what he's done with quarterbacks, particularly Breeze. He's the quarterback whisperer, So I think he being Bo Nix is going to continue to develop. And again, I see that as a 3-horse race. I will not be surprised.
Well, their defense is also scary with Denver. They have a good secondary, a decent pass rush.
Yeah.
So
But
that's a good team over there in the Rockies.
They're very, very good. I just, that's a 3-horse race for me. I will not be surprised to see the Chargers, the Broncos, or the Chiefs win that division. They're just going to beat up on each other all year, probably at the expense of Vegas. Poor Vegas. But hang in there, buddies. And then last, for me, you look at the Bengals being 10. I love the Bengals. I love the Cincinnati Bengals.
This team, in my opinion, could probably be top 5 if they had legit any other defense from any other team in the NFL.
Yes. Yeah. That's the question. Can Burrow throw for 5,000 yards every year?
How old is he? Like 27?
Yeah, he was on that great, was it 17 or 19 LSU team?
19.
So he's not that old.
He's 28. Joe Burrow's 28 years old.
So that's a little older than I thought. Actually, he's just 2 years behind Mahomes then, right? Because they said Mahomes was just turning 30.
Yeah.
But again, for that, it's going to be defense. You look at Al Golden, coming in with all that pressure to revive that defense that couldn't stop water.
Be glad you got Trey Hendrickson back.
Yes. But, again, the Steelers are dramatically improved with picking up Metcalf and Tomlin, and the Steelers are always going to be ready to play. They just have that grit, that Pittsburgh determination about them. I think Baltimore is just way ahead of those others. They're in a different echelon. But if their defense can play, I think they've got a legit chance. So those are the power rankings for the top 10. If you're watching, I don't know if they watch or not. You want to comment and tell me how smart I am and how all my picks are right. I appreciate that. If it's wrong, it was Jeremiah's idea. He told me to say it. So again, making picks is fun. It's just fun. It's just something you do at the beginning of the year, and right now you kind of have to do that because you don't have really anything to go on. So right now everybody's just kind of making predictions. I don't know that we'll always do predictions because I'd like to have something with substance. But it's fun for now, and in the NFL, it's really all we have to do. Preseason is over, and as you said, Week 1 starts tonight. When Philly and and Dallas go head to head. So Super Bowl favorites, and I'll be quick, Jer. But for me, the favorites for the NFC is Philadelphia. I think it's theirs to lose. And then Baltimore, as I mentioned, I'm extremely high on Baltimore. A lot of pressure on Baltimore, and then I think as far as hoisting the Lombardi, in February, I think you'll see Baltimore and the Ravens representing the city. Great. I think they're gonna. I think they're gonna be your Super Bowl champions for, I guess, what will be the 25-26 NFL season. So, Jared, who are your Super Bowl favorites, and who do you have hoisting that Lombardi Trophy in February?
Um, as Data said, he's been high on teams like the Bills and Ravens. I am high on the Lions. I just feel like Detroit finally gets it all together. But, however, Michigan people might not like me here. I do not have them breaking that NFL championship streak since 1957. I have the Ravens beating them in February. Just as of right now, I don't see any team being better than Baltimore. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I think you're talking about Detroit. I think one of the things that's not talked about a whole lot is their receiving core. They got Tesla is great.
Jameson Williams.
Yes. So that they can, and Detroit would sure get behind them. Michigan would sure get behind them. The Midwest would sure get behind them. And as a homer, I would love to see that. So again, we're talking Super Bowl favorites. So Jerry, you had Detroit and Baltimore. I have Philly and Baltimore, but we kind of agree that Baltimore's to lose. The next thing we want to talk about, and we've kind of alluded to these from time to time as we talked about the NFL power rankings, but who are some dark horses? And now we didn't take the low hanging fruit. We don't see Baltimore as a dark horse. So we kind of went off the beaten path a little bit with these, because these are teams that we feel like nobody's talking about. Social media is not talking about them, but they got a shot to make some noise. So Jeremiah, who do you have as your dark horses as the NFL year is upon us?
Over in the AFC, out of the AFC West, I have the Chargers being my AFC dark horse. Harbaugh has built up the O-line there. You still got Justin Herbert. Your receiving core with Lad McConkey, I think they got Keenan Allen back. Najee Harris, find that eye injury, sure, but you got a Maureen Hampton out of the draft. So I just like what team they have over there in LA. Sure, you lost Joey Bosa, but I think that was just a move for money, so you could have that cap room. But I still believe in what the Chargers have built over there. And then out of the NFC, I have the Arizona Cardinals. You got Trey McBride, who's an arguable top 3 tight end in the NFL. It just depends on what Kyler Murray's going to do. Marvin Harrison bulked up this year for his second year. And it's the same thing with the Chargers. I just like what team the Cardinals have in the desert.
Yeah, I could not agree more on the Chargers. Just the way that Harbaugh coaches. I'm also a Michigan college football fan, and he kind of does things the Michigan way. That is building his team from the inside out. That means the O line, the D line, because it doesn't matter how great your quarterback is if he has 2 seconds to throw the ball, meaning they can't protect him. You can bring the greatest running back ever out of retirement and have him back in his prime. If the O line is not blocking and making holes, then it's just a part of the game. So I agree there 100%. I don't know that Green Bay is a dark horse. I have them here, but I'm going to kind of renege on that because I think they were still going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were still going to compete and challenge Detroit.
What was their record last year? 14-3.
We can look. Keep talking, and I'll try to find that for you, Jer.
I just know that Green Bay was interesting.
Green Bay last year 11-6, Vikings 14-3, Lions 15-2. Imagine losing 6 games and being third in your division.
Yeah, that might get traded. That'll probably take you up from 11-6.
Yeah, so I don't know if they're a dark horse because again, I still think they were going to be very, very good. Another program, another organization that has a lot of history, a lot of stability. But here's one we've not talked about yet, Jer, and that is New England. I think New England has the opportunity to make some noise. Um, and one of the reasons I say that is you and I lived in Tennessee for a while, so we're kind of still, Tennessee fans. Power Rankings has New England at 22.
Is this Drake May's second year? I think it
I
is.
believe so. But he took a Tennessee Titans program organization and turned them around. I,
Into the AFC
I again took them to the AFC Championship game where they lost to Kansas City. I don't know what happened there at all. Drake May's second season. I don't know what happened there. Something again, almost like Parsons. There something happened somewhere, and he left. But the obvious thing is, he played there, so he knows the way, he knows the culture. Granted, it was under Bill Belichick, but he knows the culture there. So I just think Vrabel's going to do a great job. I'm not saying they're going to even be 500, but I just think you better watch out for them. You better not sleep on them because I promise you, Vrabel's going to have those boys ready to play. So I have New England as a dark horse. I just think they're going to be fun to watch, and I think you can just watch their trajectory. I think they're close. When you look at what their record was last year, 4-13. There's not a lot of way to go but up from 4 wins, right? So I definitely think you see a massive improvement there. Are they going to be as good as even Miami? Probably not. And then I don't see anybody in that division remote competing with the Buffalo Bills.
The only way I see the Patriots being better than Miami is maybe if they do play better in the regular season, but Miami's health.
Miami's health.
That's the biggest thing.
And Tua protecting the ball. I think another team is Minnesota, the Vikings. I know J.J. McCarthy is now at the helm. Won a championship in Michigan, and he's been in some really big moments, and played under the stars, and so we'll see what we can do. I mean, you still got Justin Jefferson, and you still got some weapons there. So it'll be interesting to see what they're able to do, what Skull can do there in Minneapolis. But I just think I just think they're going to be a lot better than maybe some think. Power rankings have them at 12, down 2. So at one point in time, Minnesota was what many prognosticators thought was a top 10 team. So again, it'll be interesting, but I think they're going to be better than most people think. We have already talked about Cincinnati, Arizona, and Denver, so for the sake of time, I won't because I think you phrased those teams extremely well. Any other dark horses, Jared, that you might can think of? We've got
The only
Chargers.
one I can really see is maybe Houston. If of course, I think O-line might be a problem with them. Losing Laramie Tunsil was a big hit, but it depends on how CJ plays as well.
Yeah, I view Houston in a very similar way that I view Tampa Bay. That division is terrible. Like, it's not good.
Biggest threat's probably the Jaguars.
Probably the Jaguars. Indianapolis.
They're falling apart.
They're falling
by
apart.
The
They're not even sure what they're going to do with quarterback. I know they've chosen a quarterback, but it's not Richardson, right? So, Tennessee is extremely young. A lot of new there. You've got Cam. We'll see what he can do.
Brian Callahan's second
Brian
year.
Callahan's second year. So we'll see what they can do. But I view Houston very similar to the way I view, Tampa. Unless you just trip over your shoestrings, that's probably 5 wins there. You play each of those 3 teams twice, in your division on the road and at home. So that's kind of where I feel like we are. Sounds like we have a dog, and it sounds like she's chewing the carpet. So forgive me for looking behind us. All right, Jared, if you're good with dark horses, let's go on again. More predictions. Again, once the season gets here, we want to offer substance, so we won't always do predictions. We might from time to time, but this is all we have right now, and it's fun, and it's our show. So, division winners, Jeremiah, and
Okay.
AFC, NFC. Who you got?
I'm gonna kind of shoot through these, but I'm gonna start in the AFC East here. In the AFC East, of course, the Bills winning it. I have Miami and not Tampa, Miami and New England battling out for second. Then in the North, Ravens, and then probably interchangeable as well. Same thing as Miami and New England, but the Bengals and the Steelers. If the Steelers find a way to not go 10-7 like they normally do, then they can be a pretty good team. And then down in the South, AFC South, Texans, and then the Jags, the Titans, probably a team to look out for in a couple years if they rebuild them right and if Cam is that true guy. And then the West, like we said a couple of times earlier, three-legged race for the AFC West between the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Chiefs. Um, Raiders, maybe half a leg. I just don't know. They're young. It's kind of the same thing as I view the Titans. Like you said, they're young. Whole lot of new quarterback,
They've got a really cool stadium.
a really cool stadium. And then over to the NFC, over in the NFC East, Eagles, Washington, and Dallas probably thinks the Giants every year for being the worst team in that division every year, so it doesn't look like Dallas. So of course Dallas, and then New York. Then in the NFC North, Lions, Packers, Vikings, Bears. Vikings can maybe fight for second, but with Green Bay adding on to Micah Parsons, it's probably ain't gonna help too much for Minnesota's case. And of course, you got first year, first year, but second year in the league, JJ McCarthy. Don't know how he's gonna really play in his home state, so don't know how that team's gonna go out either. Of course, in the South, NFC South got the Bucks, then the Falcons, then the Panthers, and the Saints. I could see the Falcons maybe being good in a couple years if Bijan Robinson develops and becomes a really good running back, like some people think he will be. NFC West, I see this one also as a bit of a. I could see any of these teams really winning that division with the Rams, the Cardinals, the Niners, and the Seahawks. I just don't know what the Seahawks. I mean, you got Jackson Smith and Jigba and Cooper Kupp as your wide receiver core. Then you got Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold got a few MVP votes last year. And then Niners, it depends on your health. And of course, I don't know a whole lot about CMC and his Achilles tendonitis. That's probably going to be a scare for them. Rams, it depends on Stafford's availability. And then the Cardinals, I think it just depends on how that entire team plays, really. Like I said earlier, I like the team that Arizona has.
Yeah. Jeremiah's the overachiever. I just picked the winners. So we agree on a lot of these. So AFC, I'll go East, North, South, West. Again, AFC East, Buffalo, North, Baltimore. We've already talked extensively about those teams. Again, Houston, we've talked a lot about them. I think just being in that division helps them a lot. But I think you also just I don't want to put them as a dark horse, but I do want to mention them. I think you need to watch out for Jacksonville. Can the quarterback stay healthy? They picked up Hunter in the draft, but he's going to be playing, I guess, both ways. So what kind of toll is that going to take on him when you play on both sides of the ball in the NFL?
I think he's also active for week one. I saw a little bit. We're closer to the end of training camp. Hunter was having a few upper body issues. I think, though, he might be cleared for week one. I'm not 100% sure for that.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence, what can he do? The quarterback there. So watch them, and then again, I think out west, I think it's the Chargers, but that division is wide open, at least for three teams. Now moving to the NFC, again in order: East, North, South, and West. I think Philly has the East. The only remote player in that division, I think, is Washington. I think Dallas is obviously down. The Giants have historically been the Giants. I think in the North, I think you have Detroit. But again, last year, like we just mentioned, the third place team in that division, the Green Bay Packers, were was 11-6. So and you remember that whole year for that division came down that last game between Detroit and Minnesota. I don't think the gap's going to be as far this year. I think those teams will be a little closer, but we've already mentioned just the weapons that Detroit has. The question is the coaches. You got some new coaches, so will they be doing new personnel, new schemes, new language? What? Again, Tampa in the South, and I have the LA Rams in the West. Again, the West, as you mentioned, is interesting because you've got the Rams, the 49ers, you've got the Cardinals, you've got the Seahawks. And again, I feel watch out for Arizona. Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky.
No one's talking about them.
Young team, exciting team. So just, I feel like they've had some great drafts, with, was it Will Johnson and with Marvin Harrison, and you've got a lot of pieces there that are interesting. So let's see if they can pull it all together out in the desert.
Marvin Harrison's been putting work in the weight room too.
I'm just going to throw this in there. I'm a huge Michigan football fan. I love watching the Johnson and Harrison going against each other in practice, and I just think that's really cool. So let's transition to college football. Let's transitioning to college football now. We're about to enter week 2 of the college football season. They have, I guess, what they call week 0. Where you had the game in Dublin, and this past week, week 1, and moving into week 2. So I know it's Thursday. We had some different issues trying to get our equipment up and ready to go. So a lot of this might be old news, but we're still going to talk about it because it's all we have to talk about until we see what happens in week 2. So we'll talk about the biggest games and surprises. And for me, Jeremiah, I think people feel how they want to feel about the 12-team playoff. I get it. I see both sides. I know last year you had the Ohio State Buckeyes who won the whole thing.
It was like a, 7th seed?
As
8th seed?
8 seed because they played Tennessee in the 9 at home. But they didn't even beat Michigan, which I love. They didn't beat Michigan. They didn't play for the Big Ten championship. Yet here they are as, 8 seed, I believe it was. If I'm wrong, forgive me. Marched through a gauntlet. Played Oregon and Texas and Notre Dame and Tennessee. I mean, I'm talking played blue bloods. And then, just this past week have beat Texas. And I think they play Grambling State this week. God have mercy on Grambling State. Look it up for me, but I think they play I think it's Grambling State. So imagine, your last 5 games, you're looking across the line of scrimmage at those programs, and now this week you see them. Yeah. I hope Grambling's getting paid because they're about to get destroyed.
That game's in Columbus.
Yeah. But my original point was I think with the 12-team playoff, you can have these kind of games because a loss doesn't destroy you. In the past, losses were a little more detrimental, a little more damaging. 1 or 2 losses, two losses and you were questionable, but 2 or more, you likely weren't getting in the 4, But expanding that has allowed us to see these games. I mean, look at the huge games we had. Bama against Florida State. I know Florida State struggled mightily last year. Again, that was an upset as Florida State took down the mighty Bama Roll Tide. Took them down. But that's 2 huge programs that we got to see on week 1. LSU at Clemson. I mean, Death Valley, Tigers, so much in common. And we'll talk about this in a little bit. Nobody thought this was going to be a huge game, but North Dakota, Kansas State. Kansas State was almost 2-0, and almost took in, 0-2. Yes, they were almost no wins, 2 losses, because they almost lost to North Dakota. The Hawks, which stands for How About We Keep Sioux. So that was interesting on people's radar. Again, Ohio State, Texas rolling into the shoe. What a matchup. I mean, that's a noon matchup on week 1. That's unbelievable. Notre Dame at Miami. Again, these are all week 1. And I'm going to mention this, Jer. TCU at North Carolina. Ooh, did that go how anybody thought it was going to go? The Fighting Belichick's. And then I have some thoughts I'll share in a minute. I'm a huge Michigan football fan. They played New Mexico. New Mexico came into the big house, and then one not a lot of people are talking about, but you and I have. You have a Beamer in South Carolina, playing his dad's football program, Virginia Tech. So, Jer, some of your
The college trade too between Tennessee and UCLA.
yeah, you're a big Nico fan, aren't you?
Not anymore.
Huge Nico fan. If you have a Nico jersey from Tennessee, he wants it. He'll
I
take
don't.
He'll
Not
take them
anymore.
all.
I wasted $50 already.
He'll take every one. If you have a Nico UCLA jersey, he's a size
I will
2X.
not wear a UCLA jersey.
But yeah, Jared, what are your thoughts? Huge games.
This is one that you didn't mention, but the 25 ranked Boise getting their tails whipped by Southern Florida.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Texas Ohio game was a really fun game to watch. I think that was a good game for Arch. Not the way he played good game, but that was a good game for him and his probably development through his time in college. Because what if that's what they had as a playoff game, and that's the first time he's exposed to a top 5 team like that, and now top 1 team in the latest shift. And then LSU Clemson was a fun late night game to watch. Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier, 2 potential Heisman, fighting it out. Was a fun game. LSU coming away with the win. I'm just glad an SEC team being an ACC team. Then Alabama, Florida State. DeBoer is probably getting petitions signed as we speak for his firing.
Yeah. How warm is his seat in his office?
It is steaming hot. And then Michigan, New Mexico. Well, that was a good game. I think it's a good game for Bryce Underwood next week, going to Norman, Oklahoma. That'll be. It's the same thing. It's the same narrative for Arch. He probably needs that type of exposure because last year Arch didn't really play much. He sat behind Quinn Ewers his entire freshman year. Then of course the Kansas State North Dakota scare. Kansas State was losing at halftime in that game, and then came back with a win by a field goal.
Yeah, at the very end, right? I mean, it's almost like a literal walk off. They were about dead to rights.
And then as I said earlier, the trade between Tennessee and UCLA. Tennessee getting the win over Syracuse, and UCLA getting sent back to the Rose Bowl by Utah. If that game was in the Rose Bowl, then getting kicked out of LA by Utah, which was so much fun to see as a Tennessee fan.
Yeah, Jer, I want to go back to something you said. You're talking about, Texas going into the shoe, dangerous place to play. Let me ask you a question. Who was the last team not named Ohio to win in the shoe? Does anybody remember? Just wonder if anybody knows. I think it was called Michigan. Yes.
With nobody.
With
as a
no quarterback whatsoever. No way to throw the ball forward. Michigan fan. Again, Texas' schedule it could be worse. It's pretty favorable. But
Kentucky after Oklahoma, that's nice. You get Kentucky and Mississippi State in back-to-back conference play.
and Vandy, who knows what Vandy's going to be? But Vandy traditionally
Vandy ain't
is
gonna be good. It's Vandy.
But to be able to go in there, I think their schedule's favorable. This week against San Jose State, and home again to UTEP. They're home a lot. They're home the next 3 weeks. Sam Houston comes in there, then they go to Florida. So it's safe to say they're a month away from their next challenge.
That Florida game's gonna be fun with Lagley and Arch battling it out.
It's gonna be fun. Again, Oklahoma, big question mark. We're going to learn a lot about them, and we're going to learn a lot about Michigan this coming Saturday night in Norman. Game day is going to be there. It's a big deal. Oklahoma may not be what they used to be. I wonder if they regret coming to the SEC or if they feel like the Big 12 is calling their name back. Can we come back? Baby, come back. So we'll see. Again, Kentucky. Again, then they have basically 3 bye weeks. Kentucky, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, then at Georgia, then home to Arkansas, and they finished the year against Texas A&M.
That's going to be another good one against A&M.
I'm glad that game is back. For a while, A&M came over to the SEC before Texas did, and I think they used to play like every year. But
wasn't A&M like the laughing stock of the SEC for a little bit?
They were. I'm glad that game is back. That's not related to anything we're talking about, but But yeah, that's a great start for Arch. Yeah, and I do want to touch, on the Michigan game. The thing that struck me for Michigan was I sensed a lack of discipline. Sharon Moore admitted that he knew that New Mexico, which basically was Idaho's team last year, their coach came over and brought a bunch of players with him. So he knew there was going to be some trickeration, some creativity.
I know it was a little weird seeing Michigan beat New Mexico by only 17 in the Big House. I felt like Michigan was going to be. I had a feeling Michigan was going to score a lot of points, but not win by 17 a lot of points.
Yeah, and if you took there were what five touchdown favorites, something like that, 35 to 42 point
Yeah.
favorites. I mean, they were a big favorite. So if you took the under, you made some money. But for me, discipline. That there was towards the beginning of the game. Both New Mexico touchdowns. You don't want to say they were a fluke because that's too strong. That's not what I mean. But the one was on a trick play. Where it looked like it was a QB sneak and they threw the ball over the top, and I would have caught that ball. I mean, nobody was there. So for Sharon and the defense, Wink and those guys to kind of be caught off guard like that was a little embarrassing, but give New Mexico all the credit in the world to roll in the big house and play like they did. The other drive where New Mexico scored, if I remember correctly, it was a very, very, very questionable targeting call on our linebacker, and now he's
Didn't
out.
he get suspended for only the first half?
So now he cannot play the first half of the game against Oklahoma. But Michigan's deep there. They're going to be fine. But that, and then there was the third down play where the New Mexico player did not catch the ball. I mean, he's bobbling it, falling out of bounds. But give New Mexico credit. They got on the ball. They snapped it. Now you can't review the play. They eventually go down and score again. So that's the negative side of discipline. The positive side of discipline that I saw was the way Underwood played, the way he managed the team, managed the huddle. Towards the end of the first half, I mean, New Mexico had all the momentum in the world, and he takes them down, and Bryce does, and they score. To kind of give that breathing room where the big house could kind of be like, okay, we're going to be all right. But just the way he managed everything, threw a touchdown, didn't do anything. I love that he threw a block on a play where he springs our running back free, and they go and score. So that tells me he's willing to do those small intangible things to get the dub. But I tell you, they better shore that up going to Norman, or they could come out of there with the Wolverines, that is, with their tails between their legs. So they need to tighten up some things and just be disciplined, play gap defense, all those things. So they need to be disciplined and ready to go. I'm going to check one thing real quick. Okay, we're still good. We're still live.
Okay, because your computer shut
My
off.
computer just went to sleep. So if it blipped out, sorry. I've been trying to touch the cursor every little bit to make sure that doesn't happen. So those are the big surprises. I think Bama's the biggest surprise. When's the last time an Alabama team just got manhandled like that?
I don't know, but yeah, that was an interesting game for Alabama. As a Tennessee fan, loved to watch that game. But Tommy Castellanos, the quarterback for Florida State, he had to win that game. He was talking so much trash and all that. He had to win that game. But it's good to see that Florida State, of course, last year they went 2-10. He lost to Georgia Tech at the beginning of the year. You were second ranked last year at the start of the season. I think some people had you making the 12-team playoff, going to the national championship, and at least to maybe the Rose Bowl or the Orange Bowl. But then you guys just get destroyed in Dublin and only win 2 games out of the year. So for Florida State, that might be a good year. I could see Florida State maybe getting back into the rankings. But I don't think we'll see the same Florida State we saw this time 2 to 3 years ago.
Yeah, another surprise I forgot about until I was looking at week 2, and there's just not a lot of good games outside of Michigan, Oklahoma, at least on paper. It's just on paper, but man, this Alabama transfer Haynes, Michigan picked up 3 touchdowns, and with that O-line, that they're going to be able to bleed some clock if they get in a close game. Or if they can continue to run the ball like that, Michigan's in for a good year. Again, I'm a homer, call it, but Yeah. So anything else surprises, anything like that, Jeremiah, in week one
Um,
that you want to? I'm looking again through the schedule for week two. There's nothing there.
for Tennessee, getting Joey Aguilar. That was a really good game for Joey Aguilar. Of course, Josh Heupel, being the recruiting machine that he is, um, brought in some good talent with Star Thomas out of the transfer portal. Got a really good young team, really good young goal line for Tennessee. Tennessee still has the same pass rush with Joshua Josephs, and then I wasn't 100% sure on how Aguilar was going to be because he started at Appalachian State last year, but he came out and balled out in his first game as a Tennessee quarterback and as a quarterback in the SEC. So Joey, I really like the way he played. He played really well. Tennessee's defense is still there, still intact from last year, still scary. Um, Looking at Tennessee and their schedule, I only see. I'm still not 100% on Bama, but if Bama played like they did last week, I really see 2 to 3 losses for Tennessee. Those three being Georgia. Even though that game's at Neyland, that's going to be fun to watch. But the three losses I see are Georgia, Florida, and Oklahoma will be a battle. So that's where I see the third loss, or Alabama. So right now I see Tennessee losing at least, at most 4 games. But Oklahoma will come to Neyland, and Georgia will also come to Neyland, which will be a good one to watch. And I just hope Joey still plays the way he did, and then UCLA with the greedy with Nico, they played. I can get it pulled up here real quick.
Yeah. While you're pulling that up, I mean, I agree. I think 3 losses max. Georgia comes to you. You go to Alabama, but Alabama, what are they? Oklahoma comes to you. And then again, you got at Florida. So I think their schedule lays out very, very well. Outside of Georgia, I mean, until Bama, you're playing Syracuse, East Tennessee, then Georgia, but then UAB, Mississippi State, Arkansas. So they're going to be rolling when they roll into Tuscaloosa for that particular game. Don't have the date in front of me right now, but when they roll in there after Arkansas, that they're going to be ready to go.
And then Nico Maliava at UCLA. Earlier in April, he went around looking for money. Oregon, allegedly, Dan Lanning out of Oregon called Josh Heupel, said, "You guys searching around." Nico and his camp demanded for more money. Josh Heupel said, "There's the door." So Nico transfers to UCLA. Joey transfers to Tennessee. And then Nico Maliava, which doesn't make sense to me because his dad said put better talent around Nico. I'd rather be at Tennessee than UCLA. But
Did we mention Jeremiah's a Nico fan?
Nico had 136 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception in the loss to UCLA. To Utah, led the team in rushing. But anyways, Joey Aguilar for Tennessee, his first game, he had. I'm trying to get this pulled up. Bear with me. Joey, he had I think 276 yards, 3 touchdowns, and like I said earlier, just went insane against Syracuse in that game, which was really good to see.
Yeah. So our last segment, at least for today, is we're looking at the rankings. Who is ranked now? That will not be in December. And why I pick December? Because that's when your conference championship games are. That's when bowl season begins. That's when the playoffs begin. So, looking at who is ranked now, that will not be in December. Then we'll flip it the other side of the coin. Who is not ranked now, that will be in December. So real quick, we'll just go in order really fast. Your top 25 coming into week 2. Again, we'll just go in order 1 to 25. Ohio State, Penn State, LSU, Georgia, Miami, Oregon, Texas, Clemson, Notre Dame, South Carolina, Illinois, Arizona State, Florida, Florida State, Michigan, Iowa State, SMU, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama, Tennessee, Indiana, Texas Tech, and Utah. So, Jared, who do you see that is on that list right now? That will be on the outside looking in come December, come bowl season and playoff time.
Well, of course, it's only week 1, and so there'll be teams like Utah, for example. They bowled out against UCLA, but I don't know if they can still be top 25 by the end of the year. But yeah, the teams I could see leaving this is Utah, maybe SMU. I'm not 100% sure with this, but Utah is probably the safest bet right now going into week 2 because a lot can happen in the next 10 weeks of college football before bowl season and playoffs. So, I mean, heck, you might not even see Alabama be ranked. I don't think they were ranked last year, but for as long as I can remember, there's always been a number 1 through 25 next to the Alabama A.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my answer, I'm going to pick up where you just left off. I think regarding who is right now that will not be in December, I think it's Alabama. And I can hear Roll Tide ready to make a trip to Michigan right now. But, you've already lost to Florida State. You play at Georgia. You play.
I think is that Wisconsin right there underneath
Wisconsin.
UL Monroe? That will be probably a testing ground as well.
It's going to be a testing ground. Wisconsin traditionally very tough. And there's so many questions about Alabama. If you think there was pressure on Bama a week ago, you be in that locker room right now. There is immense pressure on everywhere. Everybody from the coach to the coordinators to the conditioning staff. My goodness, to the food crew. There is pressure on pressure now. You've got to respond. And granted, they play UL Monroe, so let's But then. Again, Wisconsin, then at Georgia. Vanderbilt beat them last year at Missouri, then Tennessee, then at South Carolina. This is brutal right here. Look at this, Jerry. Tennessee rolls in there to Tuscaloosa. Then they go to South Carolina. Then home against LSU, home against Oklahoma, and closing the year against Auburn. I think Auburn's going to be a lot better than they were. And, bro, that's the Iron Bowl.
Auburn's one of my teams to be ranked by the end of the year.
Throw the records out, right? When Auburn plays.
Alabama's got to have the worst rivalry room.
Again, they could surprise us. And, again, this might be just piling on while they're down. But I don't see Bama ranked come December.
Another 4 to 5 loss season for them, maybe.
I think, let's just look. I'll count Wisconsin as a win for them, but I see potentially 4 losses for them. And I think that's being a little conservative.
South Carolina with Beamer is going to be extremely tough.
They could lose to Wisconsin and Auburn, so let's put those two as maybe 1 loss. Georgia, I think that's a loss for them. I think Tennessee's a loss. I think South Carolina's a loss. I think LSU's a loss. Oklahoma could be a loss. So I'm being a little conservative with 4, but 5 is not outside of the realm of possibility.
You think Vanderbilt maybe? Because Vanderbilt, they beat you last year, so they probably have a lot of confidence coming in.
I think anybody can beat anybody. And if this thing continues to spiral down, you're going to be pressing, trying to make something happen. And when you do that, you make mistakes. So it's interesting. And then you mentioned a team that's not ranked now that we see being ranked come December. Excuse me. I agree. I think Auburn is probably that team. Granted, they're not that far out now. If you were looking at who received votes, they'd be 27th. BYU got 102 votes. Then Auburn's there with 94, and then Georgia Tech right behind them. But also I threw out Louisville. They've got the quarterback who's a transfer from USC. I don't know that much about Louisville, but based on some things I've seen with College Game Day, things like that, I think Louisville could be sneaky. But the ACC is a little better this year. We haven't talked about them yet, but you've got Clemson, man, what Florida State just did. You've got Miami. You've got Louisville. So that the ACC got a little better. They're not quite the laughing
Especially
stock.
with what Miami kind of did to Notre
Yes,
Dame.
yes. So I think Auburn, but close on their heels is Louisville.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with those teams being ranked by the end of the year. I'm looking at the coaches poll as well. Another team could also be BYU. BYU could be sneaky as the year goes on. Missouri maybe. TCU after what they just did to Bill Belichick. In his first game, it's looking like BYU, Auburn, and Missouri could be ones to watch out for.
I put more stock in the coaches poll just because they're coaches, right? The
Mhm.
obvious. They actually have Utah out. You were talking about one of those teams out, and BYU in already. So, Jared, the coaches are already seeing what you're saying.
They have Alabama down to 20 as well. The coaches do.
Yeah. They've got Louisville right behind Utah as far as the first two out. So, the coaches agree with us, Jared. All right, buddy. Anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to? All right. Well, I'm going to say thank you guys for watching. If you will share, hey, come watch these two dudes talk about sports, and we would appreciate it. Jared, your closing thoughts, man.
We'll try to get more stuff figured out. We're not 100% sure if it's coming through the mic. So if it is, great. And if it isn't, we'll just look at the settings because the program we use for this has made stuff a whole lot more easy.
All right, guys. Take care. Thank you.